Good to have you here, 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, plenty to get to here on this Friday. We'll chat with Jed May, UGAsports.com, as camp's opening all across college football, so the countdown is really on now. BJ and Ben saw Chad Lunsford running across beautiful Eagle Creek earlier today, so everybody's getting real excited about now the countdown to college football. We'll have some news and notes from there. Jed May, UGAsports.com, will join us. Also, Drew DeArmond, 97.7 The Zone in Huntsville will join us. We'll talk some Alabama football with him and how different could Alabama look with Bill O'Brien as they start the countdown to the college football season as well. But pinch yourself. Make sure you are not living in the simulation, BJ, because the Braves are above 500. It happened. They swept the Cardinals and have a chance to tie their longest win streak of the season tonight against the Nationals if they can go get it done here this evening. A game and a half back of the Mets, half game behind the Phillies. Phillies and Mets play each other this weekend. Good stuff happening here for the Atlanta Braves, who offensively starting to look like a really good baseball team and just had some wild stuff happening last night all the way around in that St. Louis game.
I was going to say, guys, quite the day when you think about fall camp opening up pretty much all over college football. And then the Atlanta Braves now with a winning record, pretty remarkable, pretty cool day. And yeah, Atlanta has momentum. It was a little different. Got kind of strange last night with the Braves getting the lead and then the Cardinals walking in 3 runs, one of their top relievers walking in 3 runs. But Austin Riley with the home run. Credit the bullpen for closing the door. And Kevin, here we are. I mean, not long ago, you were looking at a 6.5 game lead for the Mets. Now the Mets and Phillies, I should say, have a 3-gamer this weekend. So somebody's going to collect some losses. And you play a Nats team that you feel like you're probably significantly better than. I mean, Ben, you've been saying it for a couple of days. It's happening. And the Braves are playing really good baseball. Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson, guys are taking advantage of opportunities. Austin Riley, and this is a team that seems like, I know we're just 1 game over 500 here, so I want to pump the brakes a little bit, but this is a team that feels like it's figuring it out a little bit, and Ben has some confidence out there on the diamond.
Yeah, man. I mean, that game yesterday was crazy. And I'm happy that the Braves were on the winning end. And because Kevin, could you imagine? Oh my God, if it was a Braves reliever that was walking guys. I mean, whenever hitters don't have to do anything competitive to get on base, and you're getting runs, and you don't even have to not one ball, land in the infield. I mean, not one ball. You didn't have to do anything competitive. That's always good if you're on the winning team. Obviously, bad if you're on the losing team. But this Braves team has done it. They got scratched and clawed. It's ugly. It wasn't baseball, Kevin, that looking forward to watching day in and day out, but they're here. And whatever it took to get here, they are here. They're doing it with guys like Soler. They're doing it with guys like Duval. They're doing with the usual suspects of Ozzie, of Freddie Free. You talk about Dansby Swanson, and I just like the fact that no matter what, the culture of this team is built so much to where even when your best player is out, even when your starting pitching Kevin has gotten better, you found your way to be in it. And if you are the Mets, you couldn't keep this lead. I mean, and obviously when you talk about the Phillies, they still out there, but I think the Braves can just stick to their winning ways. Don't panic now, because some of these guys have just gotten here, so they ain't got nothing to panic about. All you wanted, something you kept saying, Kevin, after the All-Star break, just make sure you're still in it. Put yourself in a position to still be in it. And BJ, you saying 6.5 games out, that's a lot when you're talking about being able to catch a team like the Mets, but here the Braves are. And like we said, I mean, we are, maybe a weekend away from the Braves potentially being in first place after this weekend. But yeah, you'll take the win yesterday. You just happy that the Braves weren't the ones on the losing end. I mean, those late game heroics, I'll take it. I hope it don't have to come that way. I'm not looking for an opposing pitcher to just walk guys, but if that's what happened, that's what happened. But you'll take a great job by the Braves. Not because when the Braves was up down 4-2, I was like, oh, okay, they got the fire. Here it is. They finna do it. They finna start again. But they're finding a way to get this thing going, and hopefully they can, this thing can start snowballing. Kevin and BJ, who knows, man? The Braves can get on a nice little win streak.
Well, you feel like that was one of those things where that was kind of vintage I say vintage, like what we've seen of the Braves the last handful of years, BJ, where it was, hey, you kind of take the lead, you give it up, and then you win in kind of dramatic fashion at the end of the game, which was, I mean, I've not seen much of anything like what happened last night, where literally you got the bases loaded and they could not throw a strike. I've not seen, and then a manager kind of sit back and just watch the implosion happen as your guy walks in the go-ahead run, and then walks in another run, and then walks in another run, and you're like, he's thrown 20 pitches and 4 strikes. Like, that is bad by Little League standards out there on the mound. So, I mean, just one of those things you never see, and maybe this is an incident or a moment in the season that keeps you propelled forward, where you finally get above 500. You can quit asking about it, quit having to answer questions about why this team just hangs around mediocrity with the record, and maybe show some signs of life here. And look, I think the moves that were made at the trade deadline and in the month of July weren't like eye-popping moves, but they, for right now, appear to be good moves, where you didn't give up a whole lot, and guys like Soler, Jock Peterson, Adam Duvall, in the couple of weeks that they've been, in some cases, a couple of days that they've been with the team, have all contributed in a big, big way. Rodriguez has come in and shut the door in a big spot. So just good moves that have worked out, and obviously have made this team better. And the lineup now, 1 through 8, much more fearsome than it was 2-3 weeks ago.
I think the depth is there, right? And the balance is there. And we were chatting with a number of Braves analysts last month who were saying one of the problems with the lineup is that after you get past maybe Austin Riley, there's not a lot of unitive potential on a consistent level. When you think about, Almonte's come up, he's had some nice moments, but he hasn't been consistent. Heredia's had some nice moments, but he hasn't been consistent. Obviously, Kevin Smith has had his struggles, and there were some struggles again last night. But Ben, you mentioned Soler, the power he brings to the top of the batting order. Adam Duvall already has a couple of RBIs for you in a Braves uniform. And then you think about what Vogt has been able to do, getting more regular appearances now. I know he was acquired before the day of the trade deadline, but Dansby Swanson has probably been the key in some respects to the second half of the batting order being productive and scoring runs. And I think Swanson a couple of nights ago, 4 for 4. We talked about that, had another hit last night. So Dansby Swanson has kind of led this charge of the second half of the batting order. And to me, that's really contributed to the Braves' success.
This Braves team, Kevin, like I said, I always go to you. What I like the most is we're talking about the newcomers, because most of the time when you always say, oh, they could have added a starting pitcher. Well, they only play every 5 days. They only Soler and Duvall. You talk about what they're able to bring to this lineup. I think it's something that you could definitely look forward to, because you're adding to it. But can they keep it up? Because I know it was dramatic fashion, and a win is a win. BJ, you always saying a win is a win. They count the same. Wins and losses, they count the same. I just think that at the end of the day, this Braves team is finding a way to stick to their winning ways. They ain't worrying, as you say, Kevin. They are gonna be scoreboard watching, but all they can control is what goes on with their ball club. They seem to be moving in the right direction. The pitching seems to be going well. They didn't panic. Getting down 4-2, they could have easily panicked. I don't want the late game heroics to be the method of the methodology moving forward, for winning games, but you will take it.
Well, it's good when you have guys that have a little clutch factor to them as well. And BJ, what I've done is put pressure on the Mets and the Phillies. And now you come up on a very opportune time in the schedule, just looking at it, because the Braves have obviously closed the gap. So have the Phillies on the Mets, but the Braves came from a little bit farther back and have closed the gap. Now, the Phillies and Mets are playing each other this weekend, which means one of them knows they're going to lose every single day this weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, one of them is going to lose, which means if the Braves win, they will gain ground on somebody and potentially jump somebody in the standings. So a huge series there for those two. And I think just a unbelievable opportunity for the Braves here, as you said, against the Nationals, who the Nationals weren't that far behind the Braves when you got to the trade deadline, but they've been big-time sellers. You get rid of Trey Turner and Max Scherzer, that's a signal. The signal that we're done for right now. We're not trying to win in 2021. And Yan Gomes is gone. who was one of their starting catcher pieces. I mean, they have gotten rid of a number of key contributing pieces on that team. This is not the Washington Nationals that the Braves played earlier this season by any stretch. This is a team that's trying to get to the end of the season and worry about 2022.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is a team that has, in terms of Atlanta, captured the attention of not only, I think, the Mets and Phillies, but everybody in baseball. You know, listening to some of the national shows today, talking about the National League East suddenly being kind of the hottest race potentially in baseball in terms of a division, because you have the Mets, who a couple of weeks ago a lot of people felt like potentially might be pulling away with this thing. Then you have the Phillies, who are only a half game out. Then you have the Braves, who, Kevin, if you want to phrase it like this, I know for a while it was they haven't won consecutive games, you know, in a couple of weeks. They haven't lost consecutive games in a month. The Atlanta Braves have not lost consecutive games in a month. So you're talking about a team that, while it might not be great, it's showing that it's pretty good. Long ass, right? Going back to, because I think you had a 4-game losing streak like the second week of the season. We've long asked here with this team, when are they going to win 7 out of 8? When are they going to win 8 out of 10? When are they going to win 9 out of 12? And you mentioned it, Kevin, a moment ago. Tonight, you are going for modern history, a chance to tie your longest winning streak of the year. But if you can win a couple of games, you all of a sudden are in position to do what we've speculated, to win 7 out of 8. And I know the first goal was, let's win a couple in a row and get to 500. Then it's, could we possibly win 3 in a row and have a winning record? And it feels really good to see the Braves with a winning record in the standings. But I think you expect to have success against DC this weekend. You don't have to worry about Scherzer. You don't have to worry about Turner, guys that have had a lot of productivity against you in the past. And there's a way this thing can work out where come Monday, you could be in first place with what's happening in terms of the Mets play and the Phillies. So you have to win. I know we're talking about scoreboard watching, but of course it all starts with you and you having success. But a big weekend series to continue what we saw in St. Louis, and I think the Braves should be a confident bunch.
I mean, with everything BJ just said, is basically with everything the Braves have done this season, with the win loss, the fact that, wait a minute, the Braves said, wait a minute, we allowed to win more than one game in a row? Yeah, like who told you couldn't? Well, I didn't know that up until this point. Look at what happens. And like I said, the fact that this team has won the way they've won and found a way to stay in it in the midst of everything they've dealt with, show the type of resiliency they got. And Kevin, hopefully they can stick to it. Keep scoreboard watching, but still only try to control what you can control.
Well, again, I think you have a favorable turn in your schedule upcoming as well. Playing some lesser teams you should be able to beat. And by beat, I mean, obviously that doesn't mean automatic sweep. That's not a guarantee in baseball, but teams that, as BJ said, you are in a position to be able to go out and say, we very well could win 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, and really change the dynamic of this National League East. We got so much to get to here on this Friday. College football camps opening up all over the place. We'll get the very latest there from Georgia with Jed May, UGAsports.com, coming up in about 20 minutes as well. But what are some of the big position battles we're keeping an eye on? We'll break that down next here on 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben on this Friday. We'll hear from Jed May, UGAsports.com, coming up in just a little bit. We'll talk about the opening day of Georgia camp. A lot of news and notes coming out from there. He'll join us in just a little bit. But as camps open up all across the country, BJ and Ben, what position battles are you most interested in watching how they play out? I know a lot of quarterback situations are settled, but we do still have a few quarterback battles to watch.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the quarterback battle at Tennessee. I think Tennessee has a really unique kind of set of circumstances when you talk about Hendon Hooker transferring in from Virginia Tech, when you think about Joe Milton transferring in from Michigan, and then Harrison Bailey returning. So you're talking about potentially 3 guys with starting capabilities who are going to vie for that one job. And Bailey has started games at Tennessee. Hooker has started games at Virginia Tech. Milton has started games at Michigan, and you're going to have to go with one guy. You would assume Josh Heupel, with a new offense, a new system, a new scheme, is going to want one guy. I don't know if that's realistic at the beginning of the year, Ben. You may have to go through not only fall camp, but I think multiple games to kind of get a feel for a depth chart. But this fall camp is critical. I mean, Tennessee is in a time where there is massive turnover around their program, and the quarterback is kind of going to be the face of the team. I mean, the leader of the team, the face of the team, and I think that starts with this fall, who wins the job. And keep in mind, it's not only who wins the number 1 spot, but number 2 as well, so that if there is a change, you're the first guy that gets a shot to step in.
The best position battle is one I know people are going to be saying, Ben, what are you talking about? I think it's going to be the running backs at Georgia. Everybody, I mean, you know you got a bunch of guys that can definitely go out and tote the rock for the Bulldogs this year. But when you're looking at how this offense is going to be, they're going to throw the football. So now it's, okay, who can catch the ball the best out the backfield? Who's going to be the best screen guy? Who's going to pick up the blitz better? And obviously who also can be that guy that run between the tackles. BJ, I know when Zamir White came back, everybody was saying, oh, he's going to be the guy. But, I mean, James Cook, he give you something. Milton, he give you something. I just think that what makes a competition, I mean, what these battles are very, very interesting is when everybody's good enough to be the guy. When no one guy is really like doing something, out of the norm of somebody else. So Kevin, that running back room, when you talk about 3 guys, no, potentially 5 guys, because everybody say, oh, Georgia got those good problems. Yeah, but the problem is you got a bunch of 5 stars, 1 football. So then it's going to be who's going to be the guy. So this. And every last one of those guys are going to get reps with the first team. So for me, it's going to be that Georgia running back room. I mean, so many names. I mean, from White, you know what I'm saying, Milton. I mean, when you talk about, Cook. But I think it's going to make for healthy competition because that wide receivers, those guys are going to be out there trying to, make sure that, getting familiar with JT Daniels. But I think that running back room is going to be even more incredible because if I ain't say if the passing game just doesn't seem to be what everybody thought it was going to be, you're going to go back to Old Faithful, and that's going to be the running back rooms. And I just think that what DeAndre Swift did, 4 years ago, to be able to make room for himself, BJ, with Sony Michel and Nick Chubb to be that third down back. But you saw how he had that change of pace. It's kind of no one guy in that Georgia running back room does the same thing. One guy may run in between the tackles better. One guy may be a home run hitter. One guy may be a short down. A short yardage back, but all those guys are going to look to be trying to catch the football better. So for me, as far as like battles goes, give me the running backs of them UGA boys in Athens.
And I wonder how much of it seems like we have a lot of battles that have been solved, BJ, either one way. I mean, LSU, we thought maybe there's going to be a quarterback competition, kind of got solved by injury. But how much of these do you think we've seen a little more, solid depth chart here, because a lot of teams simply with the extra year have more guys coming back than they normally would, and you just feel a little better about where you're at in some spots?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely think the more experience you have, the better that is. And I do agree with you, too, that when you look around the ACC and the SEC, there are a lot of, quote, traditional competitions, situations where maybe you don't have a returning starter, where you would normally look at that and go, oh man, there's going to be a big time question, not only in fall camp, but leading into the early part of the season. I think we have more answers than we normally do now. I think there aren't quite as many quarterback battles. There aren't quite as many huge question marks. I talked about Tennessee and the possibility of maybe 3 quarterbacks playing the first couple of games for the Vols. I think Florida State is one of the teams in the ACC that has an interesting quarterback situation. I'm not going to say quarterback battle because I do think that you're looking at McKenzie Milton, the former UCF star, as the number 1 guy. But keep in mind, Ben, I know everybody's rooting for McKenzie. What an incredible story to overcome the injury he did. But you're talking about a guy that hasn't played college football in 2 years. And reports were really positive from spring. He had some great throws in the spring game, but in the back of your mind, I think you're at least aware of his health situation. And though last season was a very disappointing season for Florida State, the games they did win, you had Jordan Travis basically kind of find a way to just make plays with very limited offensive personnel and kind of schematic options around him. And I think he's going to be on the field. I think you will see Florida State, this is my guess, use a little bit of a 2 quarterback system where maybe obvious rushing downs or goal line situations, you bring in Travis, had 7 rushing touchdowns a year ago, averaged over 5 yards per carry. So, Ben, I know you were a part of a couple of 2 quarterback systems, early on. Chris Leak was a freshman. If you're Florida State and Mike Norvell, can you have McKenzie Milton be the guy, but Jordan Travis kind of be the number 2 guy? Can that work?
Yes, because you just make them both understand. The one thing about camp that's not talked about enough is this is when your role is being established. This is what your role on this team is going to be. And no matter what, BJ, McKenzie Milton is, borderline miracle the way he was able to come back and continue to play football. The fact that he can even still walk on that knee, things that. So the goal is to make sure he makes it through the season. And the hits that he took at UCF, he can't. You got to kind of protect him from himself. So yes, can the 2 quarterback system work? Yes, because I think it's going to have to. But you can't be very very like vanilla when if Travis comes in, they're going to run. No, you're going to have to. It's kind of like having a wildcat quarterback, but that has the full nuance. Taysom Hill. Seriously, you got to make sure that when Travis comes in, you can run the full offense. Not that he's just going to run to the left, run to the right. Turn on that. Oh my God, turn on that Atlanta Falcons film and see that Taysom Hill can throw the football and get 2 career, passing, touchdown passes. But even switching gears a little bit, we talking so much about the battles. I care more about the schemes. Like, what type of scheme is Miami going to run with D'Eriq King with him coming back? What type of scheme is Georgia Tech going to run when you talk about, is it going to be more run than pass? That's what I'd be looking forward to because, true freshmen this year become true sophomores. Last year, become true sophomores this year. I want to see what type of scheme some of these teams are going to run. So for me, what type of scheme is Florida State going to run with the 2 quarterback system? What type of scheme is Miami going to run? Because you can't run as many RPOs with D'Eriq King. If you Georgia Tech, what is going to be our offensive identity? Is it going to be 60-40 run pass? Is it going to be 50-50 run pass? Because you're not going to be able to get away with throwing something at the wall and hope something sticks. That's not going to work. So bigger than the battles is going to be the schemes because even out there, and I think the most intriguing will be Auburn. You do not know what Auburn's going to handing the ball off to Tank Bigsby is not a scheme. That's called, it's a blue 42 hut, 4 yards in a cloud of dust. What type of scheme are they going to run, in Auburn? So I think, BJ, I know you talked about the quarterback battles in Tennessee. I talked about the running back battles in Georgia. You talked about the 2 quarterbacks potential system in Florida State. But some of these teams are going to have to establish an offensive identity. And unfortunately for them, they don't got a lot of time to get there.
Certainly not. The countdown is on. I know a team like Auburn's got Penn State early in the season, so they're going to find out what they are really, really quickly here in 2021. Well, Georgia's back at it as well. We'll chat with Jed May, UGAsports.com. We come back, get the latest from Athens here on 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back, 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network on this Friday. So much to get to as camps opening up all across college football. Georgia back at it today as well, opening fall camp even in the middle of August. The countdown obviously is on to Clemson there in the opening week in Charlotte. And joining us here to talk about it from UGAsports.com, Jed May steps in here on 3 and Out. Jed, welcome to the show. How are you?
Pretty good, guys. How are y'all?
Doing good for practice number 1. What can you tell us about the goings on there in Athens as they count it down towards Clemson here?
Well, I wish I could tell you more than I could. Unfortunately, they're not letting media into practice quite yet. But it was interesting. It was good to talk to some players and Coach Smart this morning. It seems like a really, I guess you could say a really focused group. They should be because it's the first practice of fall camp. But it seems like a group that's really locked in and ready to get going for the journey they got ahead of them.
Do you think there's a different intensity or maybe focus, to use the word you used, to fall camp because of that opener against Clemson?
It's interesting. I know Coach Smart got asked about that. A couple players got asked about that too. And, everyone says, kind of what you'd expect them to say, that they're preparing for the opener, the same way they would if it was anybody else, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like there has to be, right? I mean, when you work all off season knowing that you're opening with, one of the top national title contenders in the country, as opposed to UAB or anybody else. I think it has to add a little level of intensity to practice and workouts, 7-on-7s, even if they're not going to admit it to us media types.
JT Daniels, the headliner, gonna be big arm. You already know what to expect from these receivers, even with George Pickens, being out for a significant part of the season. How competitive do you think those running backs gonna be this fall camp? Because obviously, with only one football to go around, those guys are super duper talented. How competitive do you think those running backs gonna be this fall camp?
I mean, I think it's going to be an every rep kind of thing. It's like you mentioned, you got Zamir White, James Cook, Kendall Milton, Kenny McIntosh, and you got Dejan Edwards, who's a fifth string back from Colquitt County down there that would be a huge contributor at most other schools in the SEC. So I think it's going to be a huge competition. But like you said, there's only one in football, and I think these guys, especially the veterans of the group, kind of know at Georgia, you're going to get your playing time. None of these guys are going to get 35, 40 carries a game. So it's one of those things where I think these guys know if you do well in practice, you do what you're supposed to do, the touches will come, and ideally for them, the winning will come after that.
You talk about JT Daniels there with Ben. Obviously, he's expected to be the leader of this team, clear-cut number 1 quarterback, program that wants to win the SEC, get in the college football playoff, have aspirations of making it to the national championship game. And on top of that, he's getting a lot of Heisman talk here in the preseason. How do you think he handles all that? I know he seems like a cool, calm customer. How do you think he handles a lot of that talk leading up to game number 1 before they've even played here in 2021 about expectations? And, hey, you're the front runner, the betting favorite for the Heisman Trophy right now.
You mentioned cool, calm, collected. I'll use another word. Safety Lewis Seen today said he brings a California swag to that quarterback position. But, yeah, I think he's like a lot of these other guys. I think him specifically, he doesn't listen to a lot of that stuff. He, judging from what we heard from guys today, he's really taking hold of this team and taking hold of that quarterback position, obviously, with the way he carries himself. I think it was Lewis Seen, again, said, he carries himself well when things aren't going well and when they are going well out on the practice field. He's earned a lot of respect from these guys. So I think he's another guy. He kind of wants to prove, what he can do in a full season and prove maybe not so much the Heisman talk, but prove that he could be one of those top quarterbacks taken, in next year's NFL draft.
Do we know yet who the 5 offensive line starters are going to be for week 1?
Nothing yet. I think the most interesting guy is Jamari Sawyer. Obviously he started at left tackle last year, and he obviously could be there again this year, or there's some talk he could move to right guard, and then left tackle could be, one of those guys, Marius Mims, Roderick Jones, one of those guys. So I think he's kind of the key to how this line shakes out. If he stays at left tackle, I believe it was Warren Erickson that got those right guard reps. Or no, not Warren Erickson. Sorry, Tate Ratledge got those right guard reps in the G-Day game. So it's one of those things. I think Jamari Sawyer is really the guy to look at, and it could come down to maybe not how he plays, but how the guys behind him play. If the coaching staff thinks Jones or Mims or whoever else could be a top quality left tackle, then they move Sawyer to right guard. If they think maybe not, then they keep him at left tackle. So I think watching Jamari Sawyer is going to give a good indication maybe to how the starting five shakes out.
Coach Kirby Smart has had some incredible defenses, at his time at Georgia. What is this front seven, based on the other teams he had? How would you rank this front seven this year?
I think they're pretty stout. It's pretty incredible the amount of guys they had come back. When you think of, Jordan Davis could have gone to the NFL, came back. Julian Rochester, a guy who, feels like he's been there for about 8 or 9 years now. He's back. Devontae Wyatt's back. Trayvon Walker, Jalen Carter. I mean, there's so many guys just on the defensive line alone that are back. I mean, the defensive line is going to be strong. The inside linebackers, you lose Monty Rice, obviously, but Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Channing Tindall, those guys. I think the one spot you really look at is the pass rush, the outside linebackers in that 3-4 scheme with obviously Azeez Ojularian, Jermaine Johnson has transferred to Florida State. So guys like Adam Anderson came on really strong last season. He's going to be looked at, I guess, as more of a frontline producer this year. And then guys like, Nolan Smith, the top guy coming out of high school. Can he live up to that billing? Those guys like MJ Sherman and Xavier Sori, Smail Monda, there's so many guys that are now getting that opportunity to be those frontline contributors. And it's going to be really interesting to see, who those guys are that ends up shaking out in those outside linebacker pass rusher spots.
Jed May, UGAsports.com, joining us here on 3 and Out. And Jed, where does Georgia enter fall practice here health-wise? I know obviously there's some guys that are going to be out for the season, but are there guys? I know Dominic Blaylock hasn't been cleared and, quote, not in a competitive environment right now. Are there guys that now that we're in the countdown to the season might be in danger of missing the first game or missing the first couple of games given their injury situation?
Yeah, Dominic Blaylock, like you said, hasn't been cleared. Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint, who y'all might remember, he suffered that gruesome ankle lower leg injury in the Florida game last year. He's good to go. Back. Kearis Jackson, who underwent a little knee injury or knee surgery, kind of cleanup thing over the summer. He's being worked back into things. It seems like the team is pretty healthy as far as things go. Obviously, the big guy is George Pickens, who they haven't ruled him out. Him coming back at some point this year obviously won't be ready for the Clemson game, but maybe November is possible for him. They haven't ruled that out yet. And so overall, it's a team that's fairly healthy right now. Obviously, they've got a month of practices and all that kind of stuff. So I know the coaches are, I guess, only hoping that they stay as healthy as they are now heading into that Clemson game.
We've heard some media people say, look, if Georgia doesn't make the college football playoff, this season's a disappointment. Those expectations are there. Do you think this is a team that embraces that and believes that? Do they feel like if they don't make the playoff, this will have been a disappointing year?
I think that's a tough question. I think the players feel that to an extent, but I think that part of that has to do with just the level Kirby Smart has built this program to over the past few years, right? I mean, when he got there in 2017, that wasn't necessarily a team that was expected to get to the college football playoff, let alone the national championship. So I think getting there year 2, now every year since then, especially among the fan base, it kind of seems like, oh, well, they didn't make the playoff this year. Like, what's even the point? There's all that talk, remember, those Sugar Bowls. Feel like, what's the motivation of the players really if it's not a playoff game? So I think these guys, and you got to think too, the guys that are playing on this team, I don't think there were any of those guys that were contributors on that team playoff. So these guys haven't tasted that. Whereas I think a lot of the guys on this team are hungry. They want to get there. They want to do it themselves. And this year sets up well with the schedule, with the talent they have. And this is about as good an opportunity, at least heading into a season, as it's shaping up that Georgia's had under Kirby Smart.
And even sticking with Kirby Smart, obviously every team takes on the mood of his head coach. Kirby Smart, very, very fiery guy. His team seems to play that. But what has been his demeanor this year? Obviously, settled in now as the head coach of the University of Georgia. I mean, you look at the record and what he's done since he's been there. Already been to a national championship, won an SEC. But it seems like the pressure just keeps mounting every single year, regardless of the previous year. How would you judge his demeanor at this point?
His demeanor, to me, at least today, and even at media days a couple weeks ago, seemed very relaxed. He cracked a Henry David Thoreau quote. He talked about texting Quavo. I mean, he seemed very relaxed and kind of, like you said, settled in at media days. But I think he's a guy that, I don't think he pays a lot of attention to necessarily what the outside people say. But like you said, the pressure's there. You got there in year 2, which might have been a little ahead of schedule, but then every year since has seen, at least in terms of results, a regression, right? You lose in the SEC championship. narrowly to Alabama. You get blown out in the SEC championship by LSU, although there was a lot of injuries. And then last year, you don't get back there at all. So I think this is a year where Kirby Smart really needs to, put in a strong bid for that playoff, win the ACC East, get into that conference title game against Alabama or whoever comes out of the West. Not to say, that he'll be fired next year or anything if they don't, but this is a year to really kind of, I guess, get Georgia back to where it was, 2017, 2018.
And Jed, finally, you mentioned it. I mean, now that we're in fall camp, people are looking at the schedule and saying, okay, toss up, win, 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 win. If we assume that Alabama is going to make the SEC championship, I know this is kind of a simple statement to what could be a complex scenario, but do you think it comes down to this? Georgia's going to have to beat one of Clemson or Alabama to make the college football playoff?
I think so. It's kind of like you said, if they beat Clemson in the opener, but then again, I guess this all hinges on the theory, right? That they're going to win all the rest of their regular season games. So say, you beat Clemson, then you get upset by Florida or Auburn or South Carolina again. There's so many variables there, but answer your question. Yes, I think either a season opening win I think a win at Clemson right this second, or not at Clemson, against Clemson, I should say, is more important, because if you win that game, then that gives you that margin of error, right, to slip up the rest of the season. Not that the team will take their foot off the gas, but, a win against Clemson and a loss to take South Carolina from a couple years ago, that doesn't kill you in terms of your college football playoffs hopes. You will still have the ability to probably get that win against Alabama or LSU or A&M, whoever, in the SEC championship.
Jed May, UGAsports.com, our guest here on 3 and Out. Jed, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Thank y'all for having me on.
Appreciate it as Georgia gets started here in 2021. BJ, obviously a lot of good parts there. A couple of things they'd like to iron out. Offensive line, how's it going to shape up? And then obviously, working in JT Daniels with those receivers before getting to Clemson.
Yeah, and I thought good insight from Jed talking about Jamari Sawyer and where he's going to play. It may depend on the people around him, i.e. if there's potentially stable, consistent play at tackle aside from Sawyer, he can move inside. And if there's not, he may have to stay out on the perimeter. So really interesting insight there. But it is fascinating to me that when we talk about Georgia as a national contender and you talk about Georgia making the college football playoff, I hate summarizing a 12-plus game season with one sentence, but to me, I kind of don't think that's being discussed enough when you talk about Georgia big picture. Is they are the only program in the country, unless I'm wrong, that's considered a contending program that is going to have to beat one of the two modern dynasties to advance. And I was asking Jed there because I don't know if there's a thought out there that maybe a 11-2 resume with a loss to Clemson and a loss to Alabama, if they're close, could be enough to still get you in. And I haven't gotten one yes yet from any media member I've asked. So I think that's a pretty significant challenge for the Dogs, that you are going to have to beat one of the two modern day dynasties and go undefeated the rest of the way to get into the playoff.
I think bigger than even beating Clemson or even playing against Alabama is that going undefeated in the regular season. I mean, as great as Kirby Smart has been as a head coach, I mean, he don't lose often. I mean, he really, really doesn't lose often, but it's always a team that you might not see, being able to stack up with Georgia. I mean, being able to say, I got to go undefeated, during the regular season, regardless of what happened against Clemson. I mean, it's going to be a hard task for anybody. So Georgia just got to keep the main thing, keep priorities. Don't look too far down the road. Clemson will be up first, and then you can get into the SEC schedule, make 2 or 3 games down, after that. But I just think, BJ, bigger than Clemson and Alabama is, can you make it through the regular season undefeated? Because going into the SEC championship game, you don't want to have many blemishes, if at all, on your record.
Georgia back at it today, as a lot of folks get back at it for college football. We'll have more on that as we go throughout the show. It is 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Welcome back. It's 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Glad you are with us here on this Friday. A lot to get to coming up in hour number 2. We'll take 3 right around the corner. Have a little college football trivia for you as well. Also, look at some of the top returning quarterbacks. It's a who's who there of the Heisman Trophy preseason finalists, to say the least. So all that coming up in hour 2. Drew DeArmond will join us in the final hour. We're talking Alabama football coming up, as well as they get things kicked off there with Nick Saban and company in Tuscaloosa. But according to Christian, there's amazing audio that I've never heard. I should hear. We're all waiting with bated breath as to what on earth this could possibly be. BJ, are you ready? Ben, are you ready?
I had to steal Ben's microphone.
Well, Ben is not ready, apparently.
Yeah, sorry, I had to steal Ben's microphone for this. But, all right, Texas State Senator Lois Kolkhorst was deposing Texas President Jay Hartzell about their move to the SEC. And this is why college football is truly undefeated.
What's your athletic budget?
It's over 200 million. It's probably 220, 225 in that range.
Where does that put you in the U.S.?
Depending on how you count, probably first.
And that's without a winning football team of late.
It's in spite of our football team. We've been winning, just not like we like to win.
3-7 against the Horned Frogs. So maybe your fan base would rather lose to Alabama than TCU. So,
I mean, this is not the first time politics and sports have crisscrossed, and I will give you 3 guesses as to where that senator went to school. Anybody want to take a guess? She probably went to TCU.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
3-7 against TCU. I mean, look, she know her stuff.
Senator, obviously you want to go to SEC, but why don't you beat those Horned Frogs first? Oh, that's right. You can't do it. Point, counterpoint. Take 3 coming up next. Hour 2, 3 and Out. Welcome back, hour two. Glad you are with us. I have some college football trivia coming up a little bit later this hour. Also, we'll look at some of the top returning quarterbacks here in college football this season. Going to be some really, really good quarterback play in college football in 2021. But first, let's take three here on 3 and Out. All right, fellas. Kanye just finished his new album at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. If you were in charge of naming one of the tracks, what would it be? Make it Falcons related, obviously, because it was made there in Mercedes-Benz.
It's got to be prime time. I mean, it's got to be prime time, right? When you think about Deion Sanders and
All
Atlanta.
those wonderful games Deion played in Mercedes-Benz.
Okay, well, no, but you're thinking about Atlanta, and think about this. And for as much as you say that, Kevin, Ben, when you and I went to the Atlanta Falcons game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, how did they intro the team?
No. We were there, and
No. Hold on. Tell Kevin, because Kevin didn't like the answer. Tell Kevin how they introed the team at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
So you I mean, obviously they got the little circle thing up in the little circle TV screen up in the top, and then you hear this. What's up, baby? It's Deion. You know, you hear it with it. Prime time, and then BJ pushing me like I can't see. Like, look, it's him.
He literally came on the jumbotron and said it's prime time. He literally came on and said it's prime time. When you think about the Falcons, you think about Deion.
Did it say it's prime time, or did he say it's Coach Prime time?
He don't say Coach Prime up there. Up there, he
I'm just making sure we got.
Yeah, he had his all black suit on with his. I think he had on like a red tie. And it's like, I mean, the fact that you got Julio Jones and he ain't do no commercial, you got Roddy White, you got Matty Ice, you got Tony Gonzalez. It was, what's up, baby? It's your boy Deion. And guess what? When I get ready, it's prime time. Now, most of the kids are not like, Mommy, who is that?
He's that guy that played for the 49ers and Cowboys.
No, I mean, oh man, Kanye, man, you get to pick a song for Kanye. I mean, if Kanye gonna do something, it's got to be something. It got to be Dirty Birds, man. It's got to be, right? Like, I'm just like, it's got to be. Because the thing about Kanye, it is Dirty Birds, but it's not gonna be like what you think. It's gonna be something with a choreography. He gonna have like 1,000 people in the band. He gonna have, live instruments. And, maybe, Christian's coming up in the air like an angel with his hands up. But yeah, it's got to be, huh? What's up, everybody? It's your boy Kanye, huh? Give up for that Dirty Bird, huh? I mean, BJ start going crazy. Then you get JT to say, Kanye, you a genius. So yes, give me Dirty Birds because it applies no matter what. Was going to do something Kyle Pitts type thing. Was going to do something Matty Ice thing. But I said, no, give me Dirty Birds, Kanye, huh?
Was that your official Kanye impression?
Yeah. Wait till I get my money right. Listen, you don't got the answers, Kevin. Kevin, you do not have the answers, Kevin. You do not have the answers.
Just making sure. On a scale of 1 to 10, how was the impression, BJ? You think that
Kanye
passable? Or?
I mean, like a 5 or a 6.
Are you in a position to be giving
7?
people rankings
A
for
7? You want a 7?
Yours then?
I can't believe no one said 28-3 and Heartbreak.
Oh my!
Instead of 808s and Heartbreak,
hold on.
28-3 and Heartbreak.
I mean, and whose side are you on, Christian?
Of course I'm on Atlanta's side, but I mean, it just makes too much sense. 3 numbers and Heartbreaks. He literally already has an album now that has Heartbreaks on it.
He does.
808 and Heartbreaks, 28-3 and Heartbreaks.
Okay,
Call it salt in the wound. Is it definitely right?
It's all good, Christian. You don't got it. I mean, I'm just saying we ain't over 28-3. Nobody in this.
I never will be.
The Christian lives for the misery. So anything that could just make him feel worse.
Kevin, how are you a Georgia sports fan and you don't live for misery?
I mean, I saw the Braves win a World Series. I don't have to live in misery. Ain't no curses, man.
And we also saw Mike Fonavich.
We also saw 2nd and 26.
That's fine. That's fine. I've seen a championship happen.
I'm just saying we want.
So you're okay for life.
Oh, so you?
Yeah.
So you want to be like Atlanta United? They got the most recent.
Tampa Bay won like 4 championships in the past 2 years, but you're cool with 1 in your lifetime.
I mean, let's be real. The Falcons hadn't been good enough to win it, but maybe one time, and they messed it up.
It's called audible. Fine. Just audible. Just
That's
audible.
a sad existence.
It doesn't have to be a sad existence. But if you're always going back to haven't won a championship since 1980, well, you're going to be sad.
Well, how about up 3-1 in the NLCS?
I mean, those things happen.
I mean, y'all.
Hey,
Bob
hold on
take
though.
three. No,
Hold
no,
on though,
you
because
got-
we always talk about national championships, and all the only one you have is the Braves, and from a title standpoint, and Georgia hasn't won one since 1980. Georgia Tech won one in the 90s. Georgia Southern has won multiple championships. These are statewide national championships.
BJ, I know you keep saying that. They won one in 1990. That's over 3 decades ago now. Cam and I
how
were not
long ago is
alive the last
1980?
time. No, that doesn't matter, though. Cam and I weren't
Christian is
alive.
dealing in a relative sense.
It
only counts if you're going on his calendar.
That was BC and BK, before Christian and before Cam. Those don't matter.
I was about to say BK like the British Knights back in the day. Well, that's
Okay,
now
so-
telling my age. I asked them if they had a commercial.
We know I do. Do y'all not count Atlanta United's title? Because I do.
Let's talk about real things.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say this again. I was walking out of Mercedes-Benz after the Celebration Bowl, and I keep looking back, and I'm like, "What is that? Like, what?" I'm thinking, "What a Falcon is?" I'm like, "What is this big round thing?" And it took me like 10 minutes to go. That's a soccer ball. I said, they done moved the Falcon for a big, gigantic platinum soccer ball. It took me, at first, I'm like, dude, are they tripping? Like, is this just what they put just to have something there? And I'm like, that's a soccer ball. So, I mean, Atlanta United, I'm like, oh, Atlanta United, okay. Yeah, look, BJ, I'm guessing you count Atlanta United's championship.
Well, Christian was counting Tampa Bay's NHL championship, so I think you can count Atlanta's MLS championship.
I mean, you think MLS compares to NHL?
I mean, I see MLS more on TV.
Well, yeah, you're watching the Golf Channel.
We'll be here all day. Let's move along. Take 2. You have to commit to it right now. Do the Braves finish with a winning record, yes or no?
It sounds really strange to say this with conviction, given that today is the only day, or last night, that they've had a winning record, but I think so. And I think there's a couple of reasons why. You go back to the trade deadline. You said it back in the open of the show. The team is better. When you think about Soler, and you think about Duvall, and you think about Rodriguez, and you think about Peterson, obviously, and Vogt, and what you've been able to do with this roster, you've improved it. And I think that this is a team that finally has some momentum. Sometimes when you have a milestone you're trying to get to, whether it's 500 or a winning record, it can be easier to kind of move on from the milestone than to finally reach that milestone. And I kind of think that now that Atlanta's 500 has a winning record, I kind of think you're going to see them play a little more consistent, a little more free and easy. And I also think, Kev, you've mentioned it a couple of times, and it's a really good point, because sports are half how good you are and half who you play. The Mets have a really difficult schedule coming up. They are running through the National League West, which has 3 of the best teams in baseball. And I know Atlanta still has, I believe, LA and San Diego at the end of the season, but I'm looking at the Braves right now. You have Washington, Cincinnati, Washington, Miami, and Baltimore coming up. And then you have not one, but 2 series with the Rockies. And those teams are not good, not a whole lot to play for. So Christian said, call it if they have a winning record. I'm going to say yes. I don't know that necessarily means you win the division. I think it's going to be tight. I think the Braves are in the mix, obviously, but will they finish with a winning record? Yes.
Yes, the Braves are going to finish winning record, because they win win, loss. And once somebody realized, hey, man, we can actually go win. Really? Yeah, we don't even got to lose anymore. They realized, wait a minute, but Snit told us, as long as we win one, lose one, we just average. Well, we don't want to be average. We kind of want to be above average. Above average is, getting above 500 and staying above 500. Because Kevin, I don't know what it was. Every time they almost, game out of 500 or right, they'll just implode. They didn't implode. You actually saw another pitcher, not on the Braves staff, implode last night. The Braves actually won a game, but didn't have to even be competitive at the plate. They just had to stand there. Yes, the Braves will finish with a winning record, because they finally got over the hump. Hopefully, that'll be momentum for the rest of the year.
Absolutely. I think they'll get there. Again, all you have to do is be 82-80, and you get there. So I think the Braves do that. A very favorable schedule. BJ also left out, you have a 4-game series with the Arizona Diamondbacks thrown in there as well, who are truly terrible. So some really, really favorable. Well, they are. I think they have the worst record in the National League. That's not being mean. That's just facts. They are very, very bad. Yes, Christian. Thanks for that analysis. Moving along. Take 3. Tennessee special teams coordinator. He had an interesting criteria for his punt returners here in 2021. He said he looks for guys that are, quote, a fart in a skillet. So you got to explain what that means because Christian doesn't know.
Well, at first, when I first heard this, I was thinking, and I was thinking about some of the football adages, I've heard over the years. I've never heard this one. And I was thinking, okay, it goes away quick or whatever. And Kevin, you actually had great clarity on this in the show meeting. So. We were looking around going, wait a second. So, he wants guys who are quick, can get out of there quick. And you actually had a great breakdown.
Yeah, you got to be explosive and then gone. That's it. Cooks off in a skillet. Hot, gone.
I'm just saying. What else is it? A fart in a skillet. That's what it is.
Have you ever heard that, Ben? Of all the things your coaches have ever said to you, have you ever heard that?
No. If somebody say, listen, man, the one thing I like about you, man, you a fart in a skillet. So what? I'm hot and stinking. Like, what am I? I don't know, but I will take it. And the thing about special teams coordinator, that's what makes them who they are, right? That's what makes them who they are. They got some crazy little sayings and things. But a fart in a skillet, or a fart in a skillet.
In one.
A fart
so
in a skillet.
It doesn't linger there very long.
No. You know what? I don't think it's and. I don't think it's and.
No. This what it is. No. Y'all got it wrong. A fart in a skillet. You know what that is? That's disrespectful. That's what that is. And that's the way their game is. Oh, man, they disrespectful. You put the ball in their hand, them boys are disrespectful. They ball. I'm just saying, out of all the things we've even wanted to do in our life, no one has ever said, hey, man, is that skillet hot? Yeah, it's hot. But yeah, so I'm just saying a fart in the skillet. Yeah, I ain't never heard that, but I'm going to start using that. Christian asked me that when I first came in. And I said, hey, man, you know what a fart in the skillet is? I'm like, what? I thought that Christian going to say he did that. Like I did that before. I hope not. But a fart in a skillet, Kevin, have you ever?
In a skillet? No. No, I thought I totally explained it.
Disrespectful.
It's not disrespectful. He's just looking for a new way to be agile. Coaches have weird things that they say. That's like part of being a coach.
I can't say this.
If you're on a team and the coach doesn't say something to you at some point that makes you go, "What in the world is he talking about?" He's not doing it right.
Now, the one thing I heard the most, it wasn't about my game, but Christian knows this. The one word you don't want to be called in football is soft. You don't want to get that. Like, you kind of soft. I heard a coach say I couldn't. Some of y'all, microwave butter soft. I couldn't put y'all in the microwave and melt you on somebody. Just soft. Charmin.
Kev, were you ever at SEC Media Days? You're talking about saying, unique stuff from a coaching stand when John L. Smith was there?
Yeah, when I was at SEC Media Days, man, I think it got shut down. Something happened. Everybody had to get out of the building. You weren't there.
Before BJ was there.
No. Like BJ, one of your favorite movies is Martin. I'm sorry, one of your favorite movies is Friday, right? Remember that part when Chris Tucker and Ice Cube was outside on the porch? I was in that movie.
That's the whole movie.
But I was in the house. No, I was in that movie. I was just in the house.
We got more to come. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here on this Friday. We'll get to a college football quiz coming up in just a little bit. Christian's like talking in my ear. I don't know what he's talking about at the end, but you're about to have to go fight apparently out in the hallway when it's all said and done. We'll get a little college football trivia coming up in just a little bit. It won't. It'll be on. That being said, where are we talking about? We're talking about Christian's got me all mad over here. Yeah, you're bothering me. I'm trying to do a radio show here, and you won't stop talking. Good. All right. We've got more to come. We'll get to that trivia in just a little bit, but a lot of returning talent across college football as camps open up today. ESPN puts out their top 5 returning starting quarterbacks. Spencer Rattler, you got Howell, Matt Corral, JT Daniels, and Willis there from Liberty, BJ and Ben. That's their top 5. Who would be your top 5 as we look? I mean, again, a lot of quarterback talent out there in college football here 2021.
I think it's a really good list. Largely, it's one I agree with. I have 4 of the 5. The only replacement I have is I have Matt Corral, or excuse me, I have Grayson McCall in for JT Daniels right after Matt Corral. I think JT Daniels absolutely has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback in the country, and I think a lot of us expect that, but we still haven't seen a full season of production and proficiency at Georgia. So just because of that, I'm going to hold off a little bit in the preseason. I think Spencer Rattler, for me, is the preseason favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Had a great game against Florida, of course, to finish the year. You're going to see him hit all those statistical milestones, 4,000 passing yards, 30 passing touchdowns, probably going to be around 70% completions. It's probably going to be up around 200 with his passer rating mark. So I think Spencer Rattler, for me, is number 1. I do have Sam Howell number 2. And Ben, I know we've talked about from time to time, throws a pick every now and then, but also has some amazing conversions. 3rd down and long, 4th down and long, late in games, can score in a hurry, can make all the throws. He's going to be a 4,000-yard, 30-touchdown guy, too. For me, Matt Corral, 3. Now, he has the potential. I mean, you think about what Matt Corral could do. You're going to have games against Alabama, games against Texas A&M, games against LSU, the Egg Bowl. You're going to have real opportunities to make national statements, perhaps more so than some of these other guys. So, yeah, I have Matt Corral 3. For me, Grayson McCall at 4, the quarterback out of Coastal Carolina. Led the Chanticleers to an undefeated regular season last year, had Coastal in the top 10. Remember McCall went head-to-head against BYU, won that game against Zach Wilson, who ended up being the number 2 overall pick in the draft. McCall was in the top 10 in passer rating in the country as a freshman. And remember, guys, what Jamie Chadwell told us back a couple of weeks ago, that Grayson McCall played the last couple of the games on the schedule with a broken thumb and was still putting up huge numbers, had the comeback on the road against Troy late. So I have Grayson McCall 4. And then I do like Malik Willis at Liberty, really dynamic. I've seen some reports that have him projected as the number 1 overall pick in the 2022 NFL draft. So he's a playmaker. But give me Rattler, Howell, Corral, McCall, Willis, and I'll hold off on JT Daniels for right now.
Yeah, got at the top, Spencer Rattler, yes. I mean, he's as good as advertised. I think was the number 1 quarterback coming out a couple of years ago. I mean, he's definitely going to be a guy that's going to put up big numbers. I mean, regardless of what team he played against in the bowl game, he beat the brakes off of them. I want to hear about the Florida had to be team. You look at what they want to throw the football, and he's carrying on that great Oklahoma quarterback tradition, and what he's doing, definitely going to be a guy that's going to be on a lot of Heisman lists. Sam Howell is my number 2. Sam Howell is good enough to win against any team he goes up against, and he makes decisions like Baker Mayfield to lose you games. I mean, I think sometimes I do think he trusts his arm a little bit too much, but I mean, has all the arm talent you can have. BJ, we go back 2 years ago to his freshman year, and he was in a class all of his own. I think 35, 36 touchdown passes, but because he shared the same he was in the same conference as Trevor Lawrence. It was all about them Tigers and not, Sam Howell. And I almost beat those guys 2 years ago if they don't, run a 2-point conversion instead of just kicking the extra point and going into overtime. My number 3 is Matt Corral. I mean, second year in that Lane Kiffin offense, going to definitely throw it around the yard. A big time talent, another California kid coming to the SEC to play big time football. I mean, I'm a little salty because we ain't gonna talk about where he was supposed to go to school after he left high school. But yeah, Matt Corral is going to put up huge numbers. I think he's the best returning quarterback in the SEC. My number 4, I love JT Daniels, but I do agree. I just got to see a little more. Know he's gonna probably light it up at the end of the year. My number 4 is the guy that actually shared the field with JT Daniels in the bowl game, and that's Desmond Riddler from Cincinnati. I think the kid is really, really good player. I mean, when you see the way he played, not just in the bowl game against Georgia, but all year, going to have some guys coming back on the perimeter. He's going to be able to go, he's definitely built a nice little relationship with, but I just like the fact of him being a dual threat guy, a guy that can utilize his legs and his arm. But for me, I really, really like this. My number 5, I mean, I kind of went between 2 guys. BJ, I mean, thinking about a little more, I like Brock Purdy, out of Iowa State, another team a guy that's supposed to definitely, if Iowa State is ever gonna be in the college football playoff, Brock Purdy is gonna have a lot to do with it. I mean, definitely a guy that takes care of the football, doesn't have as big of an arm as these other guys, but definitely keeps his team ahead of the chains, doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and definitely as a player to watch. But even though I got JT Daniels actually at number, I mean, I know we're doing the top 5, but I got JT Daniels as number 7. My number 6 is Kadon Slovis out of the quarterback out of USC. Big time talent, gonna be able to try to make some noise this year for the Pac-12. Not gonna make the college football playoff, but I got JT Daniels right outside my top 5.
And again, great college quarterback play going on across college football. You mentioned both of you said, hey, look, JT Daniels, in your estimation, could be back up in there before the season is over. But just how good are the quarterbacks in college football? I know last year we talked about the guys going to the NFL. How good is this group, though, that we're looking at right now?
I think it has the potential to be great. And I know you've talked about how kind of the draft order is sometimes set a year in advance. It's been really interesting to me to kind of get a feel for who the first quarterback taken might be next spring. Now a lot of the mock drafts, and I'm like Cody is, I like to look at the mock drafts, 10, 11 months in advance and kind of see where the thought process is. Looks like Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon, the defensive end, is maybe the consensus to go number 1 overall right now. But in terms of the quarterbacks, and this is just off of mocks that I've seen from national outlets, I have seen mock drafts that have Spencer Rattler going number 1 overall. I've seen mocks that have Sam Howell going number 1 overall. I've seen mocks that have Matt Corral going number 1 overall. As I've mentioned, I've seen mocks that have Malik Willis going number 1 overall. And Ben, I've seen a mock, to your point, that has Desmond Ridder going number 1 overall out of Cincinnati. So I've seen a number of mock drafts reference a number of different quarterbacks as potentially being the guy. And we've also heard some whispers about, could JT Daniels be in that mix? So I think that you're talking about a number of different quarterbacks who could vie for that number 1 spot, or that spot that leads them to be the number 1 overall pick, or the top quarterback taken in 2022 with the NFL draft next spring.
It's good. You got some big time headliners. I know every year we think, this got to be the greatest quarterback draft of all time. No, I mean, you always want to get younger at the quarterback position. You always want to be able to have a guy that can come straight in out of play. I mean, you look at the success of these quarterbacks are coming out of college and having success early. I mean, Kevin, I don't know if you saw it, but yo smidgen under 6'5", Josh Allen just signed a new contract extension, I think 6 years, $270 million. So these guys are getting it done. But I wouldn't be surprised. The guy that got a chance to make the biggest leap on this list is JT Daniels. I might not have him in my top 5, but if he does what Georgia is saying he can do with all these with the hype, I would say that I've seen Sam Howell, we've seen Spencer Rattler, you've seen Matt Corral, you've seen Daniels and Willis and Ridder and Slovis and Purdy. If JT Daniels goes out and does what they hope he does, which hasn't been done in a long time, and I'm talking about getting the national championship and win, I can see him not only winning the Heisman, but being the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
And again, it could be anybody's guess by season's end who's the number 1 guy in the draft as the college quarterback of choice. We've got more to come here on 3 and Out. Speaking of college football, we'll see how much we know, how much has been locked into our brains. To do a little college football trivia when we return. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Oh, man, it's great to be here on this Friday. We've got so much to get to. Final hour, Drew DeArmond going to join us. We'll talk some Bama football with him from 97.7 The Zone in Huntsville. Also, we'll get the latest from fall camps opening up all across college football, as well as we count you down towards Braves and Nationals a little bit later tonight coming up this evening, as the Braves with a chance maybe to be in first place by Monday if it all goes well. But Christian has decided to not give us a mental break on a Friday and wants to test our brains and our heads and our minds with a little college football trivia.
I do love pitting y'all's minds against each other typically, but it is fun to see, like in the movies, where you see people who fight for so many movies come together and actually end up teaming up to take down a bigger evil. I don't know. Like usually, typically the Avengers kind of work together.
They had a couple of movies where
I mean, like Loki, I guess, if you have that. But I've decided that I'm the bigger evil.
Okay.
And I'm going to let you guys team up against me. So we're just going to do this like bar trivia style. I'm going to give you different categories, five questions in each category, and you guys get to work together. To answer these questions. How about that?
What we like to do on the show. Come together as one.
Yeah, we're all about teams. Like Cam's over here upset because I forced two of these categories on him during second down, and he got a grand total of 0.
Yeah, he said it didn't go well.
Yeah, it did not go well. So our first category tonight, guys. Second place stat leaders.
Great.
So many stats we immediately know the answer to, right? Like we know the SEC's all-time leading passer is Aaron Murray, but who's that guy that's just below them? So our first 5 questions are second place stat leaders. You get to work together here. Guys, we all know Bo is Auburn's all-time leading rusher. Who's number 2 on that list? So talk it out and then present me with a final answer.
Wow. I mean, you're talking about
like 15
Cornell, Cadillac.
Ronnie Brown, Trey Mason.
And when I say talk it out, I mean
You're talking about Kerryon Johnson. You're talking about Trey Mason.
I mean, BJ. I mean, do you
literally just told us to talk it out? We're trying to talk it out.
I mean, I can go back far.
But in a quick fashion.
I mean, Trey Mason was nice, but you think it's gonna be Cadillac?
I might be Rudy Johnson because he was the only guy.
Oh no, BJ Rudy.
I thought Rudy Johnson only started for a year or two. I may be wrong, and that's probably who it is. I may be wrong. Kenny Irons also had.
I was thinking about old Kenny.
I mean, honestly, I don't know if I had to guess.
I mean, there's like 15 dudes running through my brain, so anybody's guess is as good as the other.
I don't know. Stephen Davis. For some reason, I'm thinking Stephen Davis.
We need an answer.
What do you want to go with, Ben?
Go ahead. No, BJ said you want to go with Stephen
My
Davis?
gut's telling me Rudy Johnson, but I don't think. But I don't know.
Kenny Irons.
So we have 3 different answers.
Cornell Cadillac Williams is the correct answer there. Actually, only 300 yards behind Bo in his career. All right. Second most passing yards in a single season for LSU, obviously behind one Joe Burrow.
I mean, surely that's Jamarcus Russell, right?
Jamarcus Russell?
What they're saying.
So quickly, y'all,
Jamarcus, 2 out of 3.
You're walking it up to the bar to put it in. Incorrect. Rohan Davey.
Rohan.
Yeah,
he was nice.
Number 2 on the list there. All right. Clemson's had a ton of great wide receivers in their history. None of them have more career receiving yards than one Sammy Watkins. Who is number 2?
Oh my! Is he Hunter Renfrow or DeAndre?
I think Aaron Kelly's up there now. Now I think he's up there in receptions. I don't know about receiving yards, but Aaron Kelly's up there in receptions.
I would go with Aaron Kelly, BJ.
Aaron Kelly. It is.
Ben, you should have stuck with your heart. DeAndre Hopkins. You cammed it. Cam earlier on second down talked himself out of DeAndre.
Oh my goodness!
All right, we're off to a hot start. Calvin Johnson has set a plethora of records receiving wise at Georgia Tech. He has 3 in particular: receiving touchdowns in his career and in a single season, and career receiving yards. One guy is in second place in all 3 of those categories.
Oh, it had to be during Joe.
What about Dez White? What about Dez White or Harvey Middleton?
I'll go Dez White.
Probably Harvey Middleton. He had a whole bunch. I'm going to say Harvey Middleton would be my guess.
I'm gonna go with Kev.
All right, I'm good with either of those guesses.
Which one is it, Kev?
Could be Jonathan Smith.
Oh my goodness!
I'm sorry, I got to stop throwing in all kind of different names. Go Harvey Middleton. I know he's got to be up there.
Kelly Campbell.
Kelly Campbell.
Kelly Campbell.
Oh,
is
didn't
the-
even mention
Joe
him.
Ham had to throw
Didn't
to him.
even mention him. Wow.
Joe Ham threw to all the.
He did.
throw to both of
All
them.
right. Final question in the stat leader second place category. Second most sacks in a single season for the University of Georgia.
It's got to be Jarvis, right?
I think Jarvis has the most. I think it's David Pollock. In a single season, didn't Jarvis have like 15 or 16? I don't know that
Oh my!
did Pollock.
Oh yeah,
ever-
so
He
yeah.
played
David
against
Pollock. David Pollock has the most sacks in Georgia history. Don't mean he had the most in a single season. David
And I'm
Pollock.
deferring to you because you played against David Pollock. So we're deferring.
Well, I'm sorry,
to
that I don't know David Pollock's stats. I didn't
Yeah,
call him out every game.
I'll just go with that. That's your. Yeah, I mean,
So we're going with David
I'm gonna
Pollock.
go with David Pollock.
You are correct.
Oh.
David Pollock. David Pollock had 14 in 2002. Jarvis Jones had 14 and a half
Oh,
in 2012. Jarvis Jones is actually first and third on that list. All right, moving on to the mascots category. You guys have
we might have a little more.
Come on,
success
BJ.
here.
Yep. I need you guys to name every FBS school that uses the Bulldog as their mascot.
Georgia,
And you know, just to expedite this, there are 4 of them.
Georgia, Mississippi State, Fresno State,
Well
I missed
done,
it.
Kevin.
I
Kevin's
missed
carrying.
one.
Yeah, Kevin's
Georgia,
carrying it.
Mississippi State, Fresno. Who else, BJ?
I'm trying to think. FBS. So we're okay because at first my mind was going all over the place with the FCS.
yeah, like Yale and all that. But no,
Citadel and
I know,
exactly.
I know Butler does, but I don't know if that's.
that does not count for today's purposes.
I know.
we're talking about Butler High.
I mean, for crying
No,
out
no,
loud,
no,
guys,
no,
I got 3/4 of these. Help me out.
The college Butler is actually the Butler Bulldogs.
Put 20 seconds on the board.
Oh man, it's brutal. Golly. I'm running. There's so many of them. There's so many people trying to rush through the door. I can't get anybody through it.
10 seconds.
Sanford. Nope.
That's FCS.
Watch me be mad. Watch me be mad.
You're missing Louisiana Tech.
Louisiana Tech.
Louisiana Tech Bulldogs there.
Come
All
on,
right.
man.
Kevin, I apologize.
I mean, I did all the work except for
My bad.
one.
My bad.
Well,
Kevin.
let's see if you can keep carrying the water for the team. Texas A&M shares Aggies with these 2 teams.
Utah State, New Mexico State.
There we go. BJ, bing,
My
bing, bing.
goodness.
All right, Ben should know this one. Which UGA are we currently on?
10.
Yes. Wow.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Good. They kind of been through a couple of
Yeah,
them.
They've literally been through 10 of them. Kevin.
No, I mean, but like you had the stop.
Actual
No,
UGAs. Yes.
Well, yes, but you also had the fill-in Uggers that
Yeah,
kind of
Russ.
rotated through there as well. So
Yeah, Russ. I think they had like a McGillicuddy in the 80s too, which is awesome. All right.
I mean,
Ramses
Yep.
is a live mascot that represents which university?
Tar Heels.
North Carolina.
North Carolina. There we go. Cam missed that one, and I was just going Ramses.
Ramses.
All right, final
Ramses the
question in
Ram.
the mascots. Name 4 mascots that have to do. Well, I'm trying to think of the best way to frame this.
Oh boy.
With an aquatic event, with a aquatic phenomenon.
What?
Well, like
I mean,
like
Commodores.
Hawaii.
No, not like somebody, not like a person's job,
Like
literally
Tulane.
a natural event from the ocean.
Tulane and Alabama. Green
Yeah.
Wave and Crimson Tide.
All right, I need 2 more.
I mean,
Hawaii-
come on, fellas.
Tulsa.
What they are the
Hurricane in Miami.
Are they the Hurricanes?
Is there,
Miami.
is there a Golden Hurricane?
the Golden Hurricanes and the
And
Miami
Miami
Hurricanes. They're
And
very
Yeah,
Miami.
like
good.
Hawaii is a fighting rainbows.
All
I
right.
apologize.
Moving on, next category: coaching history.
Oh boy.
Nick Saban's first head coaching job was where?
Michigan State.
Michigan State.
As a head coach or just in general?
As a head coach.
Michigan State.
No. Go ahead. I want to say it was like Akron or something like that.
Well, he played
He
at
played at Kent
State. Kent State.
You
Yeah,
got
I'm
North
okay.
Michigan State.
I'm okay with that.
All right.
Yeah.
Close. He had a year stint at Toledo as the head coach.
Oh, come on.
Before that,
I was in the correct state. I said it was like Akron. I should have said,
went 9-2 and won a conference championship. Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart coached under this current SoCon coach in 2001.
Chris Hatcher.
That is correct. Where's he coach, Ben?
Valdosta State.
He did coach at Valdosta State. Where's he coach now?
He coaches for a very, very successful football team.
BJ?
He's at Sanford, man.
That's right.
Sanford,
Kevin,
okay.
who was the
Also the Bulldogs.
who was the quarterback at Valdosta State that year, 2001?
2001, was it Buster Faulkner?
It's close. This guy led the SEC in 6 different categories. The year
That's
before
right. It was
transfer.
right after I left. So, yeah, I'm sorry.
Who was it?
My bad.
Dusty.
Dusty Bonner, I'm
There we
sorry.
go. All right. Urban
Buster
Meyer.
Faulkner was right after that.
Urban Meyer had 4 future FBS head coaches on his 2006 staff. Name them.
Charlie Strong.
That's 1.
Dan Mullen.
That's 2.
What's the coach that went to that was at Boston College?
Mike Loxley, Steve Adazio.
Mike Loxley. I don't know if Mike Loxley was on that staff. Mike Loxley was on that staff.
Steve Adazio, I believe, was.
Steve
Steve
Adazio was. You're
Adazio.
missing 1.
Oh, please let it
He
be.
coached at this place for a decade.
Larry Fedora.
That is incorrect.
He coached at the place for a decade.
10 seconds.
Oh, 9. Dan Mullen, Dazio, Coach Strong.
He was there when you were there, I think, Ben. Maybe he got there just after you. Doc Holliday.
Oh my goodness, man! Yes.
Doc Holliday would go on to coach Marshall for a
That's true,
Yes,
yeah.
decade.
yes.
All right. Longest current tenured head coach in college football.
Wow.
Man.
Is it the guy at Nevada?
It is not the guy in Nevada, I'll tell you that.
Ain't the guy at Kansas?
In college football, period, or just
Like
Division 1, like FBS?
FBS, who is the longest tenured coach?
Oh,
I mean, is it Nick
uh,
Saban? Like,
At
I
the-
hate to say that.
At the same school, obviously.
Yes, that's what tenure means.
I mean, Nick Saban's at what, 12, 13? It might be him.
this guy is
Is it
been there at his job for more than 7 years longer than Nick Saban's been at his job.
Well, I know that counts the
10
SEC out
seconds.
because I know he's Saban's back up to the longest one in the SEC.
10 seconds.
What?
I mean, I think everybody in the ACC's turned over. Big 12.
Dun.
Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. Has been there
Oh
since,
my gosh!
Been there since
And he's wanted to leave like 3
1998.
times.
Been there since 1998. All right, final one in the coach category. Active FBS coach with the most career bowl victories.
Oh man, that could be anybody. As long as there's people that win in bowl games, but they're just like the CarQuest Bowl.
This is a great stat because he's bookended by Bear Bryant and Lou Holtz.
Jeez,
The most bold.
who was the guy that was just at Arkansas State? He won a bunch of them. I don't know.
Blake Anderson?
I mean,
Just throwing a guess out there.
I mean, you would think Nick Saban with this one too.
I don't know. Nick
Jim,
Saban's lost a few of them.
Jimbo,
Utah's got that number.
Jimbo done won a bunch of them.
I don't know. My guess would have been Nick Saban here.
Say Jimbo. I don't know.
Jimbo Fisher.
Jimbo Fisher.
No.
Mac Brown.
Mac Brown.
Mac
that's
Brown.
Right. The Mac Daddy make you.
Mac Brown has 14.
Yes.
Kevin,
Okay.
Kevin, you want to take a break? Come back and do the last
Let's
few.
take a break. This is awful. It's 3 now. Southern Pigskin Radio Network.
Gather yourselves.
And Mac had the most wins.
Good to have you here. 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We finish our college football trivia here with Christian Gokel. It was going there through the first one. Go ahead, quickly.
All right, quickly here. This Miami category, heartbreakers. This Miami defensive back was called for pass interference in overtime of the 2003 national championship game between Miami and Ohio State.
Oh my God, who got called for?
Was it Philip Buchanan?
I believe that's correct.
I think it was Philip Buchanan.
It was Glenn Sharp.
Of course, it was Glenn Sharp. Come on,
Glenn Sharp, BJ.
Oh, BJ should know this one. This Florida State kicker missed the famous wide right field goal versus Miami.
Now hold up. Now, which wide right are you talking
First
about?
one.
I think he also missed a wide left one too, did he?
Or it's wide right again.
No, going back. Okay, going back to the first one. Now
What
was
was
a
the
really
last
small,
one?
No. This is early '90s. I'm trying to think. No, I don't think it was it Scott Bentley.
It was Gary Thomas.
Oh,
Gary Thomas. No, yeah, you had like 5 different kickers miss wide rights or wide lefts. Yeah, Gary Thomas. Okay.
This LSU wide receiver caught the Hail Mary touchdown in the Bluegrass Miracle.
Oh my goodness! Didn't he play for LSU? I mean LSU. He played for the
That
Saints.
is true.
Sorry.
Agreed.
He wore
I'm
number
sorry.
He wore number 14. I can see it. I believe.
What is his name? Devery? Is it Devery Henderson?
It is Devery Henderson. Ben, clutch. All right.
Man, that was huge.
Opposite of that, this wide receiver caught the tipped ball from Aaron Murray in the 2012 SEC championship game that would cause the clock to roll to 0.
Oh, it's the. Hold on. He called it.
Was it Justin Scott Wesley?
It was not Justin Scott Wesley.
No, it wasn't a tight end, man. That's the one that got him down there. Oh
Go
my
to your
goodness.
producer for help.
Say it, Cam. What you got? Think.
It was not Malcolm Mitchell.
Malcolm
Cam. Thank you for your help, though. It was Chris Conley.
Chris Conley.
Chris Conley.
All right, and finally, this team was ranked 3rd. Again, the category is heartbreakers. This team was ranked 3rd heading into the final week of 2014 in the college football playoff polls. They won, and then were dropped 2 spots to 5th and left out of the playoffs.
It was the TCU or Baylor.
Yep.
It was Baylor.
It was Baylor.
Baylor?
Yeah.
It was TCU.
It was
Oh God!
BJ. That's ridiculous. We'll come back. One more hour to go. We're talking with Drew DeArmond. In about 25 minutes, we're talking Alabama football with him. It's 3 and Out. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio, streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. Welcome back, 3 and Out on this Friday, final hour of the show. Glad you are with us. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Also streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. If you missed any portion of the show, our YouTube channel at ESPN Coastal on YouTube. Also Spotify, Apple Podcasts, ESPNCoastal.com. You can get a podcasted version of the show each and every day. But fall camps are open around college football. Beautiful Eagle Creek. BJ and Ben saw Chad Lunsford running across beautiful Eagle Creek, getting ready to start practice today. And we get some news and notes from around camps. Chad Lunsford saying Sam Kennerson and Cameron Ransom, top 2 candidates for starting quarterback there, while Justin Tomlin is suspended for the first 2 games. And I got to say, you saw some, for whatever it's worth, Ben knows about looking good coming off the bus, but Cameron Ransom, 6'4", what about 220, looking the part there as a freshman. But those 2 guys, Sam Kennerson and Cameron Ransom, going to be duking it out to see who starts game 1 and 2.
And a couple of impressive freshmen, Kennerson, a redshirt freshman, and Ransom, the true freshman. And you mentioned Ransom, a lot of really good reviews on both these guys. Ransom won a 6A state championship as a prep player in the state of Florida. So very, very impressive. I believe Kennerson, a very accomplished player out of the state of Louisiana. So a couple of out-of-state guys coming in, and freshmen are going to lead the way early. It might be both. It could be, a freshman, or it could be freshmen with an E. You could see both Kennerson and Ransom in there potentially, but excited to see what these guys can do the first couple of games. Gardner-Webb, and then I believe Florida Atlantic. So a spotlight, an opportunity for you early. And I think this is going to be a chance to start that is determined in fall camp, that is determined over the next couple of weeks. And that's got to make this opportunity for both of those guys extra kind of exciting and pressure packed, Ben, when you think about, I have an opportunity over the next 3 to 4 weeks to go out, compete, obviously with all respect for my teammate, but go out and compete for a chance to be the number 1 guy to start the year off as a freshman. Again, Kennerson, a redshirt, Cameron Ransom, a true freshman, but excited for the opportunity that those guys have. And I think both are very talented players, and wouldn't be surprised if you see both in those first couple of games.
This is what college football is all about. Most of the time we get caught up in the storylines that's already been written, or we already know who the starter is. I know that when it was announced that Tomlin going to miss the first 2 weeks of the season, everybody was like, well, don't panic. I mean, BJ, you mentioned, Cameron Ransom, a 6A championship. This is a guy that a nice resume when you look at what he was able to do in high school. I mean, Kennerson is definitely one to be the guy that's going to make sure that, he makes sure that, Mr. Ransom understands that college football is about making sure that you are the best guy, but being able to do it day in and day out. I think this is great for Georgia Southern. I mean, I know that everybody wants to already have the depth chart, kind of like we know who is going to be. These guys are already penciled in. But I go back to my college time, and football is about understanding how to adapt. Pressure, it definitely busts pipes, but it also creates diamonds. This is just me personally. I don't know Tomlin's situation. It's like his rapport with the team, but I don't see him coming back game 3 and starting. This is why. Whenever you got a freshman, whether redshirt freshman or true freshman, they starting for you, you do not pull that guy, because you may never get he may never get his confidence back. So if you are Georgia Southern and you play a skill position, J.D. King and those guys, you are going to have to rally around these 2 guys. The great thing about not having a quarterback who's going to be the starter, it means that all the other positions needs to be on their best, needs to be on their P's and Q's, because now that's a different level of evaluation. If you're an offensive lineman, are you blocking differently for one than the other? If you're a running back, are you not picking up the blitz better for one than the other? If you're a receiver, are you not getting open or are getting open? I mean, I know everybody has their cliques. Everybody has the guys that they hang out with away from football. Well, if you are a receiver, you better make sure you get with Ransom, or you get with, Kennerson, and telling those guys, I got your back. Because that's what it's supposed to do. The quarterback is supposed to have the full confidence of everybody on the team, but you are supposed to earn their trust. Point blank, period. That matter. That way it don't matter who is in there, because when you're in the quarterback rooms, they'll say, hey, man, what receivers y'all like? Oh, man, this guy right here gets open. What tight ends y'all like? Oh, this guy. But you want to make it so that any one of those guys, whoever runs out there game 1, you got their back, because it's going to take that. I know that Coach Lunsford is a great coach, Kevin and BJ, but now he's going to really earn his money, because this is the first time in a long time he's going to the fall camp, and he got a question mark at quarterback.
Well, Sam Kennerson's got the confidence. He came out and said, look, hey, we got the best defense in the country. at Georgia Southern, which, BJ, if you can come out and play the way Chad Lunsford's squad did a couple years ago, very few turnovers. I think they had the fewest turnovers in the FBS history, where it was just had 5 for the whole season or less than 5 for the whole season. You don't turn the football over. If that offense does, if Sam Kinnerson and or Ron Ransom can do what they can do and run that offense, defense, as you know, BJ, in a run-heavy offense, you don't really need to make but a couple of stops a game. And if you can do that, you're going to win a lot because you're just not going to play that many series on defense.
Well, and Kinnerson talking about that defense, you do return the national interception leader in Derek Canteen, who was right up there as a freshman. You talk about freshmen doing it big in year one. Canteen did it with an All-American type season for Georgia Southern a year ago. But yeah, listen, you're not talking about a situation where you're stepping in under center and you're going to have to throw for 350 yards or run for 200 yards. You mentioned J.D. King, Ben, and kind of the producer that he is, the consistent playmaker that he is. He's healthy now. I think that'll be a guy that you turn to. And it was interesting to hear you talk about if you're a receiver, if you're on the roster, you go up to those guys and say, I got your back. And the reason I found that interesting is because, correct me if I'm wrong, you did that with Chris Leak when he was a freshman at Florida, true freshman. And you had to go in and say, look, man, I know this is new for you, but I'm here with you. How important is that support when you have a young freshman playing the quarterback spot?
It's everything. And think about what it says about the head coach when he comes to all the skill position guys and not the quarterback and say, you guys got to pick these guys up. Runza comes to me and say, listen, Ben, I'm not going to – this guy is coming straight out of Charlotte, North Carolina. He's missed the football for the state of North Carolina. He's missed the football, in the nation. I need you to protect him. That means that not only do I need to be where I need to be, not only can I not get covered, I got to, I got to go out there and direct traffic. I got to make sure those receivers know. I got to get them on the same page. At a certain point, the veterans got to take over the team. Coaches coach, players play. Coaches call plays, players make plays. So when Ron Zook comes to me, that let me know what I had earned as a player. Forget stats for a second. Forget numbers. The only way you play in any line of football, no matter what level it is, Pop Warner, high school, middle school, college, pro, you have to earn the trust of your head coach. Head coach comes to you and says, hey, Kevin, hey, BJ, I need you to protect this guy. You know why? Because they're freshmen. You know what freshmen do? Freshman things. Freshmen see. So I go up to Chris Leak. I said, listen, man, I'm gonna go out there and get open for you. He says, he said, Troop, if I see your numbers, I'm throwing it to you. Now, what I didn't realize about that is sometimes you may see my number, but that don't mean I'm open. But if he put the ball in the air, that means he trusts me to come down with it. Sometimes it was ill-advised throws, but I got to make it look like it was routine because if I'm flustered, he's flustered. If I'm nervous, he's nervous. I got to be the one go up to him and say, 12, just be you today. What? Just be you today and I got you. You don't got to do nothing extra. That's what quarterbacks need to know. And then if he can be himself, now his natural ability takes over. So when you look at what Chris Leak became as a player, that had a lot to do with his true freshman year. He was a true freshman, starting going to Baton Rouge. That was, I think, his first career start in the SEC. I think his first career start was against Tennessee. But what it does when you got two guys now, because we had Ingle Martin as well. I was cool with Chris. I was cool with Ingle. I didn't eat lunch with neither one of them. I wasn't brown nosing with none of them. Why? Because I had to earn it every day, and I wanted both of those guys, no matter who was in the game, that they could trust me. But that's what makes football fun. When your game, my game had come to another level. I was a senior. I was able to put it all together. I was 21, and my freshman quarterback was 18. So there were certain games he looked like a freshman, and there were certain games he didn't. But I do think that that's what makes football incredible is all 10 guys on that offense got to have that quarterback's back. And if they do, that can make Georgia Southern to be a very, very dangerous team because you got two guys that weren't slated to play that's going to get a chance to play. Those guys will come out there and try to light it up.
And, of course, Georgia back at it today as well in Athens. Dominique Blaylock not cleared and, quote, not in a competitive environment right now. So we'll wait and see. We talked earlier in the show with Jed May. He said, yeah, not close just yet for Dominique Blaylock. Marcus Roseby-Jackson said was out there. Nakobe Dean with a shoulder. He's back out there. So Georgia looks to be relatively healthy, BJ and Ben, as they get things started outside of a couple that we kind of already knew about. They look to be about as healthy as they possibly can be now that you're in the month countdown to that Clemson game.
And you hate that for Blaylock, trying to come back from the torn ACL. But yeah, really excited to see what Nakobe Dean can do this year. I mean, played last year through some injuries, one of the most physical linebackers in the SEC, a heralded former blue chip, prospect. You're talking about a recruit that everybody wanted, and he's validated that. But I think he's going to be one of the most productive and consistent linebackers in the SEC this year. And I think he's going to help headline what is a just star-studded front seven.
That front seven will be the reason why Georgia either does or does not do what they have to do as far as like during the season, postseason, and potentially, in the college football playoff. That front seven led by, Jordan Davis, adding guys back like Nakobe Dean for, if you didn't know, played with that torn shoulder all last year, which shows you the level of toughness that he has. If he played the way he did with a torn shoulder, how much more efficient is he going to be? A fully recovered shoulder. But yeah. Camp starts today for Georgia. I mean, they've been hearing all off season. They know that they're picked to go right back to Atlanta to play against whomever, hopefully Alabama, in the SEC championship game. But Kevin, before we can get to Atlanta,
I was gonna say you can't even worry about that.
Got to get to Charlotte. But fall camp is the greatest. It really, really is. I know I talked to you guys about the spring, hate it. I know I talked to you guys about 2 days, can't stand it. But fall camp means, all right, man, now I get to show how much I've come from 1 year to the next year, how much I've improved from the spring till now, how my teammates can depend on me. That has nothing to do with, padding my stats. That has everything to do with making sure that I got to prove I'm one of the best 11 on this team, regardless of offense, defense, special teams. I'm one of the best 11 on this team. You got to prove it every single day. And everybody talks about wanting to go to Georgia. Well, what they should do, they should show a practice. So all these young men out there saying, I'm going to be a Georgia Bulldog. And they said, man, why is Kirby yelling like that? Why they moving so fast? Because, man, they know them boys from Clemson are coming. You want to be the man? You get to play one of them. And that's week one in Charlotte. Bank of America Stadium is going to be rocking. That sidelines, BJ, going to be star-studded. Them alumni going to come out. You're going to have Trevor. They ain't going to have Trevor Lawrence. But you might have, Taj Boyd and those guys on one sideline. I mean, CJ Spiller, who is the running backs coach for Georgia, for Clemson right now. I'm looking forward to it. But fall camp is when you get to go out there and show why you are one of the best in the country. But before you do that, you got to show why you're one of the best on your own team.
And again, I just imagine that if you're Georgia, what a fall camp it's going to be, knowing that Clemson is waiting out there in week one, and you open up the season. BJ, that is the game of the week. I know people can say, "Oh, Bama's playing Miami." Yeah, that too is a good game. It's not 4 versus 3. It's not a potential playoff type matchup in the first week there for Georgia and Clemson. I think that's certainly the headliner, and that's going to be the game everybody's talking about on that first Saturday of college football.
And I think if you're Georgia, that can really be your focus, because normally in fall camp, and I know some of this is handled during spring practice, but normally in fall camp, you have some position battles. You got to figure out the quarterback situation. You have to figure out who your playmakers are. You have to kind of settle a depth chart defensively. I don't think that's the case for Georgia. I think for just about every spot on the roster, you know who the starter is, you know who the backup is, you know what the depth chart looks like. I know maybe a relative question or two along the offensive line, maybe in the secondary, but for the most part, there aren't many questions. There are many more answers than questions on this roster. And, you're not having to worry about breaking in a new kicker or something like that. I mean, you pretty much are good everywhere. You have talent everywhere. You have experience everywhere, and you're able to really focus on that week one showdown.
Just know that the fall camp is about counting healthy bodies. You want to be as healthy going in, you are coming out as you are going in, and that's what it's really going to come down to, BJ. I mean, Miles Brennan should show everybody you are an injury away for your entire season, either still be in front of you, or you got to already start, talking about next year. So when it comes to Georgia, it's all about those starters, but make sure you be counting those healthy bodies, because you don't want to hear that breaking news. That's not always a good thing when you're talking about teams that got a chance to be in the college football playoff.
We've got more to come here on 3 and Out. Speaking of opening camp, Bama back at it today. Drew DeArmond, 97.7, the Zone of Huntsville, going to join us when we return. We'll look at the Tide as they get ready. They got an opening week showdown with Miami. He joins us next here on 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Camps opening up all across college football, including there in Tuscaloosa. Drew DeArmond, 97.7 The Zone in Huntsville, joining us here on 3 and Out. Drew, welcome. How are you?
Great, guys. It's football's back. It's great to be on with you again on ESPN Coastal and Pigskin Radio and 3 and Out. You know, been waiting for this day for a while. SEC Media Days is now in the rear view, which means fall camp's going to get cranked up here in early August. And great to have the guys back out on the field, and hopefully a little bit more normalcy. Still some precautions being taken, but really looking forward to getting everything cranked up.
Certainly, and again, Bama starting fall camp. What is the big goal here of fall camp? Is it working the quarterback spot, finding the new playmakers to fill in at the second, third receiver spots? What do you feel is the big goal of fall camp as they prepare for Miami?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think they need to figure out right tackle. Is J.C. Latham ready to be another true freshman starter for Alabama in the SEC? We've seen it happen already. Before Nick Saban got there with Andre Smith, and then he became an All-American under Nick Saban. We've seen him bring in James Carpenter as a junior college transfer. He was ready to go. Cam Robinson, Jonah Williams, and a lot of times we saw these guys make a big jump, especially Cam Robinson, from the spring to the fall. Now, J.C. Latham was behind because, of course, this was his first collegiate experience in the spring. Damian George was ahead of him at that right tackle spot. George also got a look inside at guard. So it's going to be interesting to see if J.C. Latham is ready to go. Tommy Brockermeyer, he and Latham were probably the top two tackles in the country. Brockermeyer needed to add weight, kind of reshape his body. I've heard he could get a look inside at guard, but I'm going to be interested to see, if he can at least back up Evan Neal at that left tackle spot and kind of be an apprentice for a year and then be ready to go, because Evan's moving from the right to the left side. I think it's going to be his natural position. I don't expect much, of an adjustment for him. I think he's going to be ready to go. He had a good spring. And then you look at, they'll have Emil Ekiyor back at right guard. And then one of the most interesting things we heard from Nick Saban in Hoover was he kind of let the cat out of the bag with Javian Cohen, who got a lot of reps at first-team left guard before missing the last couple of scrimmages in spring and having to have some surgery. But if he's back healthy, he looks to be the front runner at left guard. I know Tommy Brown will kind of be in that mix too, but I'm anxious to see kind of how the offensive line hashes out. To me, I think Bryce Young's the guy at quarterback. Brian Robinson is going to be the guy at running back with some very talented guys behind him in Jason McClellan and Roydell Williams. But the biggest storyline for me, though, offensively is that right tackle spot, trying to solidify the offensive line in front of Bryce Young.
And you mentioned Young. The last two quarterbacks at Alabama both threw for over 40 touchdowns in a season. What are kind of the statistical expectations for Young this fall? And are we kind of seeing an identity change, or are we seeing more of the same schematically, you think, at this fall camp?
Well, guys, I really think they're going to do a lot of the same things. Now, I think I've been on with you before and said I expect more two tight end sets. I expect more of Cameron Latu and Jaleel Billingsley. Jaleel helped, ease the loss of a Jalen Waddle with his emergence last year, so he should be a prime weapon to be used. Bill O'Brien has always incorporated the tight end when he was with New England, with the Texans. He likes to use the tight ends in the red zone, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more of that. But otherwise, I think schematically you're going to see a lot of the same things. You're going to see one back. You're going to see 3 wide, 4 wide. In certain situations, maybe 5. We'll see. But they got to have some receivers earn the trust and prove themselves. And besides the offensive line, I'm really anxious to see that receiver core, because you lost 4 first-round picks the last 2 years, and so I've heard really good things about John Mechie and the offseason that he's had. He's healthy now. He missed the spring with that lower leg injury, but I think he's definitely the leader of the group. Speaking with him at SEC Media Days, he definitely seems ready to go there. And then Slade Bolden got some time last year as well with the injury to Waddle and some other guys getting banged up. So I think they know what they have with those two. But then going forward, it's going to be – I heard some, Jamison Williams looked good today in practice. He's the transfer from Ohio State. I'm excited about Ajay Hall, who went through spring. I'm excited about Trayshawn Holden. Also, JoJo Earl, who just got here in May. So I think Alabama's still got talent at receiver. It's just not proven. But anxious to see some of these guys. And then I haven't even talked about Javon Baker. And I asked John Mechie at SEC Media Days, hey, you were the guy getting so much buzz coming into fall last year as the breakout receiver. Who is it this year? And he talked about Javon Baker, who made several plays, in the spring, and who Devontae Smith kind of took under his wing last year. So I do think the wide receiver room is talented. Probably not like there's going to be some different skill sets on display than what we saw the last 2 to 3 years, but still a chance for some big time production.
And Drew, you mentioned a guy, you mentioned Bill O'Brien and being able to try to incorporate some of the things they did in the previous year. The one thing I think that stood out more than just the play calling was the pre-snap motion. I mean, these guys are just out leveraging guys just from the motion alone. How much is that going to be incorporated? Because as you mentioned, if they're going to have more 2 tight end sets to be able to get, 2 tight ends going to make it, harder on the defense to adjust because of the personnel that they want to do to kind of counteract that. But how much is just pre-snap motion going to make it life easier for an offensive line that's still trying to figure out his right tackle and the young quarterback and Bryce Young to make sure, he's comfortable out there?
Well, and Ben, it's good to be with you. And I do think you're still going to see some pre-snap motions because you can move Slade Bolden around. I mean, he's a guy that can take snaps even in the backfield. We've seen him do that with trick plays. He played quarterback a lot at West Monroe, the same high school that produced Cam Robinson. I think he's an underrated weapon there. I think, when you look at JoJo Earl, with the role he could earn, I definitely think you could see him used in that manner as well. And honestly, John Mechie is a different style. I mean, he's more of a mini Julio. And what I mean by that, Julio is brute physicality. He was a really good blocker. He was really physical with his routes. And I think that's kind of what you see with John Mechie and him when he's able to kind of generate separation. But I do think there'll still be some of the same concepts, except you might see it with quick flares to the backs instead of the receivers, Ben, because I think when you saw that in the A-Day game, they're not going to show too much, but he was, they incorporated Roy Dale Williams as a receiver. I think they can incorporate Jace McClellan. They're going to give some different looks on film than they did a year ago, because again, they have some different style of skill players, but I think some of the same concepts will be used, just maybe in a different way. And anxious to see Bill O'Brien, because the one thing we've always seen, Ben, and you studied the NFL, you played in the league. New England was very multiple offensively from week to week, and the way they kind of dissected matchups. And I think Bill O'Brien will be the same way. I thought he did a great job developing Deshaun Watson into a great quarterback. Where he got away from and got himself in trouble was trying to buy the groceries and of course cook them. And it's hard to do both. And I think as a coach, he's really good with quarterbacks, and I think he's going to put Bryce Young in some good situations. And I know y'all were asking about numbers. Honestly, I don't expect a ton of drop-off. I think Bryce is going to be dynamic, and he has to be, because of the way football is today. You've got to be great at the quarterback position, and if Alabama wants to win the toughest league in the country, and if they want to, repeat as national champions for the second time under Nick Saban, Bryce Young's got to A, be healthy, and B, be very, very, very productive. And if they can keep him healthy, if they get the offensive line figured out, I think offensively with the weapons they have at wide receiver, tight end, and then, as we said, the depth at running back, I think there's no doubt in my mind that this Alabama offense can still be really good. Now, I think the defense is going to have to lead the way early, especially against the Canes, but I still expect Alabama to be productive offensively. And then when you reach that third and fourth week, I think they'll be really, really, really hell on wheels.
Drew DeArmond joining us here on 3 and Out. And Drew, just how deep is this Alabama team? Like, we hear about certain guys on the depth chart, and you talk about, well, they got to figure out their offensive line. But I think other people hear that, they say, well, they just got another 5-star that's waiting for his. I mean, how deep is this Alabama team with talent that maybe just hasn't played significant time yet?
Well, I do think they're very deep defensively. I think they've got a chance to be 3 deep along the defensive line. Definitely two groups. But if LaBryan Ray is healthy, if John Marion Latham is ready to step up, after basically a redshirt year last year, COVID year is really still a freshman. But if he's ready to go, I think they can go almost 3 deep along the D line. The linebacker core is the best in college football. I'm not going to have anybody take a back seat to him, because when you've got Will Anderson, the National Freshman of the Year, you've got Chris Allen, solid as a rock, big-time leader, and then you add Henry To'oTo'o to go with Christian Harris. To me, and they've got depth. They've got a lot of depth along on the edge. You've still got guys like Drew Sanders, who's coming into his own. You've got guys like Chris Braswell and King Makuta, who was in the transfer portal. Looks like he's staying. So you got younger guys like Keanu Coote, who's a freshman. They've got a lot of depth on the edge, probably more pass rush depth than we've seen. And as you guys know, defensively, it's not about keeping teams to 8 to 10 points anymore. It's really hard to do with the offenses and just the progression you've seen throwing the football. What you've got to do is you've got to pressure teams, you've got to disrupt, and you've got to force turnovers. And if you do that, you're going to be successful defensively. And I think with their front 7 depth, if they can solidify the other corner opposite Josh Jobe, if Jalen Armour-Davis or the freshman Kool-Aid McKinstry or perhaps Marcus Banks can solidify that corner slot, I think they've got plenty of depth and talent, in that defense to really lead the way. And then offensively, I just think the key is you've got to keep Bryce Young healthy. Paul Tyson is a nice backup, and I really love Jalen Milroe's athleticism and skill set. I think he may be involved offensively, a la Cordell Stewart type role potentially with his dynamic athleticism, but he's not ready to be a quarterback. And to me, the only elite player in that room is Bryce, so that's why they have to keep him healthy. But all the depth around him, we talked about the receivers, running backs. I think there's plenty, and keep those 2 tight ends healthy. I think this is a very deep team, guys. It's young, a lot younger than we've seen the last couple of years. So there might be some growing pains, as I said, the first couple of weeks when you get on that big stage. But I think with Nick Saban, that staff, Doug Marrone, and Bill O'Brien being veterans, I think by the time you hit the Florida Gators in Gainesville, it's going to be very, very interesting to watch.
And there is just so much talent defensively, especially at linebacker. But a year ago, Alabama was 32nd in the nation in total defense. Now, granted, that's in a year where you still win the national title. But do you think with so much back, we see kind of that more traditional top 10 defense out of Alabama this fall?
Well, yeah, I definitely think they're going to be better. I think they've got to improve on third down defense and getting off the field. Certainly Ole Miss was able to exploit them and score a lot of points. We saw that. Florida did the same thing. Those 2 offenses were very, very dynamic. There's no question about it. They're going to have to replace Christian Barmore, who is probably their best pass rusher from a defensive line standpoint. But they've got Tim Smith going into his second year, pushing DJ Dale. So I'm excited about him. LeBron Ray, I mentioned him earlier. He's an NFL player if he's healthy. He hasn't been. He's had a lot of injury problems. But, you get him healthy. To'oTo'o has had a seamless transition from what I've been told, because the systems from Tennessee to Alabama with Jeremy Pruitt are very similar. He's been a signal caller for 2 years at Tennessee. I expect him and Harris to be the combination. I think Jalen Moody was very good in a sub role last year. They're going to create a role for him as well, probably on third down some, dropping into coverage. But I do think when you look at this Alabama defense, if that corner slot is solidified, if you keep Jordan Battle and Malachi Moore healthy, Brian Branch, I think that the secondary will be just fine. Last year it came into the season very inexperienced. It was kind of the weakest link because they have the young talent but had not been thrown in the fire. Now they have a year under their belt. Pete Golding is back. And so I think there's a lot of continuity on the defensive staff, no doubt about it. And I think Alabama's deep on all 3 levels, and I think they're going to be the best defense in college football.
And Drew, finally, I know you talked earlier about trying to solidify who's going to be at that right tackle spot. In your opinion, who has to pay dividends quick as far as new hires? Is it Bill O'Brien calling the offense, or is it Doug Marrone coaching up that offensive line?
Well, that's a great question, Ben. To me, I still think when you look at it, it's almost 1A and 1B. And the great thing about Doug Marrone and Bill O'Brien is they have a working relationship that goes all the way back to their college days. They've been together before, at Georgia Tech. So they're very familiar with each other, very good friends. Their wives are very close. I believe, Bill O'Brien introduced Doug Marrone to his wife. But if you had to ask me which one is the most important, I still say the coordinator. He's the guy that calls the plays. He's the guy that earns the trust of the quarterback. And I think it's very important that, he and Bryce Young have a connectivity. That was what was so important a year ago with Mac Jones and Steve Sarkisian. They were always on the same page. Mac was a guy that grinds, studies. I mean, guys, he took 75 pages of notes before, they played Notre Dame in the national semifinal. And then during the preparation time, which is a little bit shorter for Ohio State, he was only about halfway in and already had 45 pages of notes. I know his personal quarterback coach, Joe Dickinson, very well, and he told us that on the show. So is Bryce going to grind like that? Are he and Bill O'Brien going to have that same, connectivity and almost synergy? And I think that's very important when you have a coordinator. And, Bill O'Brien's been through the wars. He's coached for Bill Belichick. He's won divisions in the NFL. But, of course, in Alabama, you have to feed the beast. So, to me, it's still the offensive coordinator. And I'm anxious to see the stamp that kind of B.O.B. puts on that offense in Tuscaloosa, starting with Miami and Atlanta on the 4th.
Drew DeArmond, 97.7, The Zone in Huntsville, our guest here on 3 and Out. Drew, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Always appreciate it. Ben, look forward to talking to you next week, man.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Drew DeArmond joining us here on 3 and Out. Alabama, well, they just keep rolling right along. The machine, no signs of slowing down. We got more to come. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It is 3 and out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben counting you down towards Braves and Nationals coming up just shortly after we are done here on the show. But pitching matchups this weekend, favorite of Braves, BJ, Eric Fetty, Josiah Gray, a good young prospect that they picked up from the Dodgers, and Patrick Corbin going for the Nationals against Kyle Muller, Charlie Morton, Max Fried. This is an opportunity to be at home, play some good baseball. And again, depending on what the Phillies and Mets do to each other, you could find yourself by proxy in first place if they beat each other up the right way.
Yeah. If you win tonight, you're gaining on somebody. You're making progress on somebody. And right now you're a game and a half out. The Phillies are a half game behind the Mets. So if Philadelphia beats New York tonight, you're going to have a new team in first place. But you could have another new team in just a couple of days with the way this is lined up with Atlanta. Right. But I think Kyle Muller is one of the more interesting players on this team because, Kevin, at least for me, you go back to the start of the season, and I don't remember a ton of talk about him, right? When you looked at the rotation, and we didn't know what was going to happen with Soroka, but I'm going back to March and April, you thought about, well, we'll have to wait and see what happens with Tukey. But at the end of the rotation, maybe you're looking at, Drew Smiley, maybe you're looking at Bryce Wilson, maybe you're looking potentially at Sean Newcomb if he doesn't stay in the bullpen role. You didn't hear a ton about Kyle Muller, and here he is, and he started, 7 or 8 games, and he's got a sub-2.5 ERA. I mean, Kyle Muller has been fantastic, and unfortunately, he hasn't gotten a lot of run support. He's 2-3 on the year, but I don't worry about that with starters. You worry about ERA, and his ERA is 2.43. That is elite. Now, do I expect a little bit of a market correction? Yeah. I mean, I don't think Kyle Muller is going to finish the year with a 2.3 or 2.4 ERA. But even if he finishes in the low threes, I mean, you're talking about laying the foundation for being a front end of the rotation guy. And Kyle Muller's big, he's strong, he's a strikeout pitcher. He's one of those, blow it by you type guys. So really excited to see more of him. But Ben, a 2.43 ERA for a guy, I don't want to say he's come out of nowhere, but a guy that has really come up here and kind of made a name for himself in a hurry.
BJ, why is it every time a guy's pitching out of his mind, you say, I don't expect him to stay there? I mean, you don't got to say that out loud. What if he does? I'm not comparing him to him, but you talk to Grom, but what he was doing, right? I mean, everybody just expected him to just continue this streak until somebody showed that he was human. I think when you look at this Braves team, I mean, what makes the Braves dangerous is you just don't know what to expect from them game in and game out. They can go out there and now, obviously yesterday, I mean, the pitcher on the other squad, he just imploded. I mean, he just couldn't get anybody out in the latter innings. But I just think for this Braves team, what I see the most is they're learning to be consistent. They used to be consistent at being inconsistent. Now they're getting on a little roll here, Kevin. And once again, I think it's great when you start scoreboard watching. But at the same time, as long as your scoreboard, is always lighting up for you and not the other team, the Braves, I mean, dare I say it, they control their own destiny the rest of the way out. I know we've been saying this. From here on out, it's going to be, this is the most important series for the Braves. Every series they're going to be in, regardless if it's in division or out of the division, just to keep pace, just to keep the momentum going. And I hate when we say the Rockies are awful. The Diamondbacks are awful. They are. But you know who will play down to them? That would be the Braves if they play them. So I know you got to focus on what's in front of you. Hindsight is always 20/20. But what I like the most about this Braves team is they're finding a way to get it done. I mean, at the end of the day, no one cares how you win, just that you win. And right now the Braves are getting it done. Hopefully they can keep that momentum going. Let the Phillies and the Mets deal with each other. We're coming up with each other. I think this Braves team give themselves a fighting chance, Kevin, and they seem to be doing it, each night. 3-game winning streak. I hope it turns to 4 and 5, but I just like the fight in them because, like I said, I don't know the conversation that Alex Anthopoulos and Snit had when Ronald Acuna Jr. went down, but it wasn't pleasant. Did they see the season end up going right here, right now? If they said yes, they will be lying. I mean, because nobody saw being like this right now, but here they are. I just like him, and I just keep coming back to the culture of the Braves, man. Culture matters. I play for the Raiders, people. I know what not having a culture looks like. And when you play for a team with a winning culture, it doesn't matter what players you have. They're gonna find their way on the winning side of things. And dare I say, new addition, Soler and those guys getting it done. Hopefully they can keep it going. But yes, Kevin, this is going to be a very, very important weekend, and hopefully steamrolls in the next week.
Well, I think the reaction that will be interesting to follow will be what happens if the Braves do find themselves in first place, because they've been the talking point around the Braves all season long was they're not 500. They can't get there. They're inconsistent, and they're just the pitching's not there. Now the pitching's coming around. The new additions have been a great, supplement to the offense. It seems to be better. What happens when the Braves wake up and they're in first place? Do the Mets start pressing? Do the Phillies start pressing? I think that's the interesting part because the Braves have ran the division for the last 3 years. So to me, what's the response not only of the Braves finally getting there, but for a team that was, quote, average to mediocre most of the year to all of a sudden be in first place? How do the other teams respond to that?
I think they feel the pressure because this is a team that I think a lot of people around the division, I'm not necessarily saying in Braves country, but when that margin got to 6.5, I think a lot of people said, all right, they're done. Acuña's out for the year. They're done. And you kind of emotionally and sort of in terms of your mental makeup moved on from the Braves. And now it's been a couple of weeks and they're a weekend out from first place and have a number of new guys offensively and now in the bullpen who are doing some big things. So I think this is a situation where if Atlanta moves into first, yes, the Mets and Phillies are feeling that pressure for sure.
I mean, Kevin, obviously, I want to have those problems. I do think if the Braves find themselves in first place, it just adds more pressure to the rest of this already, a very, very competitive division.
Yeah, I want to see him come out and put together a streak that we've talked about, BJ, of 7 out of 9, 8 out of 10, something like that. If they do that, I think whoever finally does that, Phillies, Mets, Braves, can take control of the division. Braves and Nationals coming up this weekend. We'll come back, put a wrap on this one. It's 3 and out on the Southern Pigskin Radio. Good to have you here on this Friday. Thanks to Jed May, UGAsports.com. Also, Drew DeArmond, 97.7 The Zone in Huntsville, for joining us here on the show. If you missed any portion of the show, ESPNCoastal.com. Also go to our Facebook page at ESPN Coastal, or excuse me, our YouTube page at ESPN Coastal there on YouTube to get any of the show or shows that you may have missed here with us on 3 and Out. Braves this weekend. Of course, college football camp is going to be rocking and rolling as we count it down. So a lot to get to as we look ahead to Monday with training camps, Falcons, Jags coming into their first preseason weeks, BJ and Ben. So a lot to look forward to on Monday.
I'm ready, and hopefully we're talking football with the momentum of another Braves sweep come Monday, and potentially, dare I say it, I mean, we've set all these new standards this season. Could the Braves be in first place the next time we chat?
Calling it Braves in first place. Going to be talking Falcons. Going to be talking Jags. Maybe we talk some of the Tennessee Titans, BJ, because, well, you know, the Falcons got a chance to be competitive in the NFC South, but we already know who's going to win the AFC South.
Tim Tebow?
Tim Tebow gonna get the brakes beat off him when he come to Nashville. I'm just telling him that right now.
Enjoy. We've got Braves and Nationals. Eric Fetty, Kyle Muller, your pitching matchup. We've got it for you coming up in about 7 minutes from right now from Atlanta. Enjoy it. We will see you Monday right here on 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Conversation continues always on Twitter at Pigskin Radio.